our podcast, keeping it real. Don't put all your eggs in one basket to rely on one asset, because this is one asset. It's a house. To put all your eggs in one basket to rely for your retirement is almost like putting all of your money on red when you go to Vegas.
What happens if there's an incident that ruins the property, a fire or things of that nature, anything? Okay, I'm done with this. I can't keep doing this. I'm gonna sell the house.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a tomorrow process. That's not gonna
Right.
happen in one day.
No.
Right? So now you've got to get lawyers involved, you've got to get real estate agents involved, you've got to get all of these things involved in order to sell that property. All a mortgage broker is trying to do is get you in debt. That's their role. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, right now, you're not gonna be able to flip a house because you're still gonna be living paycheck to paycheck when you buy that house, right? And you're going to be living in that house forever because you're still living paycheck to paycheck. You're not replenishing.
I felt sorry for her because you know what she was doing? She couldn't even afford to eat. The only meal she had every day, 3 times a day, was cereal. That just broke my heart. Like, I even remember crying with her.
It's our government they want us that way because that's how they're making their money. The banking systems, everything is set up so we are in debt for the rest of our lives.
I'm gonna get healthier later when it's more important. Well, if you haven't been eating healthy now, or you haven't been doing regular exercise now, do you honestly think that your motivation's gonna go up later when you're 7 years old, when you're not as strong? Your body's already been kind of ruined by your eating habits. Can your home really fund your retirement?
A lot of Canadians think their home is their retirement plan. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to put that belief in our microscope, kindly, but very honestly.
Yeah, I mean, we're not against home ownership, guys, but the math that Canadians assume actually doesn't really match reality, especially if you want to actually retire comfortably, not just retire and, hope.
There's a lot of talk to right now with the way the housing market went kind of weird there for a while, that owning a home for a lot of people may not even be a reality, right? So with that in mind, what are people going to do, right? Things of that nature in regards to a lot of people, exactly this topic, think that their home is their retirement plan, But what does that really mean? What does owning a home and a retirement plan have to do with each other? Because you still need a place to live, right?
Yeah.
Things of that nature. A lot of people don't actually do the calculations, the math. It's one of those things, it's like it's been embedded to us as kids. You have to own your home someday. You have to own your own home someday, right? And it's like that may not be a part of your financial plan, right? If the numbers don't work. So it's really something that a financial advisor can truly help you with.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think back to, and like you kind of alluded to it, Phil, how we even formed this belief, like when you think about our parents, okay, let's just think about that. Our parents probably went through the Depression. They were buying houses for $20,000-$30,000, lived in there for like 40 years, raised their children there for 30 years, 40 years, and sold it for maybe $500,000. And so our parents perhaps thought that was the way to go, and maybe they were able to do the same thing, buy it for super cheap and sell for a lot of money. So they've used this idea that, again, like to your point, this chunk of money is a retirement. But when you think about what housing prices are right now versus, what we can, safely save, put towards this mortgage every month, it doesn't match up anymore. And we have 2 incomes now coming in, because back in the day, sometimes most of the time, you would find 1 income coming in. And so how could 1 income afford a house back in the day, when now we literally need 2 incomes now to be able to afford to buy a house or qualify for a mortgage? And so I think today would be a great idea on how we can help guide our clients, Phil, on maybe just thinking about planning for this kind of purchase, continuing to plan to keep this purchase, but as well as thinking about that this house is not going to be your retirement plan.
Yeah, so much truth in what you just said. I mean, even realistically, the mortgage rates back 20 years ago, right? The difference to now and things things of that nature. It's there's so many factors that have made the idea of real estate flipping houses. That's the term, flipping houses and things of that nature. It's made that there's even, I think, regulations now restricting that. So that strategy that, I mean, 20, 30 years ago, people were making a lot of money doing is not a reality anymore. But that's still in people's minds. They still think that's a reality today, right? And that's not necessarily the case. And so let's break this down, into someone has is thinking about buying a home, right? With the idea of they're going to live in it for 10, 15, 20 years, and then they're going to transition into a new home, but keep maintain this home, et cetera, right? That's their game. They're going to maintain this home, live in it, and then, well, they usually don't live in it for 20 years. Let's say they're going to live in it for the next 5 years, and then they want to sell the house, or they want to rent out the house, buy another one, right? That's their idea, right? Because
Yeah.
that's usually in people's minds when they don't actually do it. That's what they think is going to happen,
Right.
right? So let's look into that a little bit. Okay, so we have this client. They've got this up front. Let's say, I don't know, they've got a lump sum of money ready for the everything is good. Their credit is good. All of that is good. They've got the down payment for the house, so they're going to get approved for this initial mortgage, right? But 9 times out of 10, correct me if I'm wrong, whenever this happens, they are now house broke. They have put everything that they've saved up into purchasing this first house. So they have to start over. That's typically the case. Okay. And people don't think about, okay, after I've got this, I still have to be ready within the next 5 or 10 years to do it again.
Mhm.
Right. So there's going to be a lot of factors in there. And let's talk about the common ones first, right? Like things like, what's their income level? Is their income level going to replenish their credibility? Because now they're going to have to be approved for two mortgages, right? Because they still, this not like this other one's going to go away. They still have
Right.
that one, and
Yep.
now they got to get approved for a second mortgage. Is their income level high enough, right? That's the first thing that they've got to consider, right? What else do you think that they've got to consider in this aspect?
Well, I think a lot of people think that, well, if I rent it out, that's going to pay for the mortgage, right? So it doesn't matter, right? But what you don't know is if you're going to maintain a mortgage on your rental property, the bank is going to want to only take probably half of that rental income to consider. So you might think logically you don't have a mortgage because the rental income is going to cover the mortgage. But banks have their rules about giving mortgages on rental properties. And so only 50% of your income, conservatively, can be counted as income. And you still have to prove that income. So let's put this, you can't just say, yeah, I'll rent it. You actually have to have a rental agreement in place to confirm to the bank you actually have that income coming in. And even if you don't have that rental income or rental agreement in place yet, you have to prove based on an appraisal to confirm that that property you want to rent out, that older property you used to live in that you want to rent out, can actually yield the rental income you think you're going to charge. So there's a lot of hoops you still have to jump through. I think it's so interesting when people talk about real estate investing and how they would sooner put their money into real estate. I don't know if that's just a mindset of having a tangible asset to prove wealth, or if it's something that they're literally not educated about how the lending institutions lend out money for mortgages. Because I used to scratch my head at the bank wondering how do you gain wealth on a piece of property that you had to come up with 20% down payment that you're going to rent out. Okay, so you're going to rent this out, and you're barely just covering the cost of the mortgage, the property taxes, sometimes condo fees, if you're going to include utilities for your tenants. How is that gaining wealth? And they're always thinking, oh, well, this house is going to go up in value, and that's where they feel that their wealth is going to come from. The housing market, how hot it is, and so the value of my house is going to go up like exponentially. Well, I mean, sure, over history, the housing market has, gained, right? If you look 50 years back, you can look at the property prices have gone up for sure, much like you can do that with the stock market. But this is that whole adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket, to rely on one asset, because this is one asset. It's a house. To put all your eggs in one basket to rely for your retirement is almost like putting all of your money on red when you go to Vegas. that's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, and there's other factors. Your focus on that topic is having a renter and renting it out and things of this nature, right? Because that's why people real estate invest because they want to buy property to rent that property out. Makes sense. However, what happens if the renters are no good? What happens if the renters don't stay? What happens if the renters stay but decide not to pay, right? Or what happens if the renters trash the place?
Mhm.
Right, there's so many factors there, that, or what happens if there's an incident that ruins the property, a fire or things of that nature, anything, right? There's so many variables there. They think, okay, well, I'm going to have insurance and that'll cover some of these costs for, like, if there's a fire, things of that nature. Okay, but that doesn't replace the home. You now
Mhm.
have to get another home, right?
Mhm.
And things like that. So there's a lot of factors when you're dealing with a tangible asset, right? That can affect that tangible asset,
Yeah.
right? So just what's happened recently, the housing market going up. Like, are you going to be able to get a renter at the rental cost of renting now? Like, 10 years ago, the rent was considerably cheaper than now,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so a lot of people now, you're not just getting one renter to rent a place. You have to get 3 or 4 renters, right? Now you have to rent rooms instead of the whole house and things of
Yeah.
that nature, right? So now that's extra work on your part. You think, oh, I'll just don't no problem. I'll just get 3 or 4 renters. Okay, that's interviewing those renters. That's getting the approval for those renters. You're not just gonna let anybody into your property,
No.
right? So that's extra work on your part. Do you have the patience? Do you have the time, to do all of that, right? There's a lot of background work to renting that people don't realize, right? And then on top of it, again, is okay, if you have to chase the renters down for rent all the time, what if they're always late? Or what if they're, maybe they're good, they're paying the thing, but they're just not time responsible, so they're
Yeah.
always late, and you're having to now chase them down all the time. So things of that nature. So what do you do, right? And those are the things that you've now purchased. It's not like you can transition that property right away. If you decide, you know what, this is way too difficult. I'm 50 years old. I'm still trying to work a full-time job. I don't have time to go and keep maintaining this house, because now they're calling me every day for problems. Like, I have to fix light bulbs. I have to unplug the toilet. I have to do all of these things. I have to keep going back to this place and doing all this stuff. Well, that is the responsibility of a landlord,
Mhm.
right? That is technically, that tenant doesn't have to do anything for the upkeep. Some tenants do, right?
Yeah.
We'll do the upkeep, but they don't technically have to. That if the fire detector batteries die, then they don't have to replace the batteries. They can just call you and say, "Hey, come on over and fix this." Right? That's the
Right.
landlord's responsibility. And so a landlord would say, "You know what? Okay, I'm done with this. I can't keep doing this. I'm going to sell the house."
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a tomorrow process. That's not going to
Right.
happen in one day,
No.
right? So now you've got to get lawyers involved. You've got to get real estate agents involved. You've got to get all of these things involved in order to sell that property. And what are you going to do with those tenants that are in there?
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot of factors into a tangible asset like that you have to consider before doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, 100%, I'm not against it. 100%, can it help build your wealth? Absolutely, it can.
Sure.
All right. Absolutely can be a retirement asset. 100%, right? But it has to be done right, just like anything else. We talk about investments, RSPs. Are they the right fit? Maybe not,
Mhm.
right? Before, just like everything we're talking about is kind of yesteryear. It was a great idea. Yesteryear, RSPs was the only idea. Right? It was the way
Yeah.
to go. But
Totally.
now, yeah, advisors will talk about that because it might not be the right fit,
Hmm.
right? So we have options now, and that's what this is all about. Is we want you to understand that there are options, and before you make a large, like, buying a home is the most highest expense that people go through, right?
Yeah.
And maybe one of the highest stressors too, right? So before you do that, we always say, make sure you talk to an advisor first. Let's get your ducks in line before you do it. People say, oh yeah, I talked to my mortgage broker. No, 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 no. That's not an advisor.
No, no,
Mortgage broker is not an advisor,
no, no, no.
right? They say, yeah, I talked to a mortgage broker. I'm good. No, all a mortgage broker is trying to do is get you in debt. That's
Yeah.
their role. Their role is to somehow prove your credibility to put you in debt. That's their prime objective. That's it. If they're trying to, if they're advertising themselves as advisors for anything, no, 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 no. They're just trying to get you bought on a mortgage, put you in debt so they can make money. That's their
Right.
idea. Are they a necessity? Absolutely, they are. Right? Is their profession credible? Absolutely, it is, because you need them in order to buy that home.
Right.
Right? But they are not going to sit down and do a financial plan with you. They will look at your budget, but they're not looking at your budget to help you with your budget. They're
No.
looking at your budget to see if you are able to be approved, right? And if you're not able to be approved, are they going to sit down and break down how to structure yourself? No, they're not going to break it all down for you. They're gonna tell you, okay, yeah, you need to either make more money or you need to get rid of these debts and see me in like 6 months to a year.
Right.
Right? That's going to be their financial advice, because that's all they're legally able to do. They're not able to give you a financial plan, right? So
Yeah.
so keep that in mind, people. Talk to an actual, someone who does holistic financial planning, and speak to them first before doing anything else. Get your ducks in line. Then the next step maybe would be to talk to a mortgage broker at that point. And then people don't talk to your real estate agent first. The real estate agent cannot help you, right? So once you talk to that mortgage broker, then you talk to the real estate agent. So financial planner, financial advisor, mortgage broker, then that real estate agent after that. And then you move forward into what you're going to do. But if that financial advisor is saying, hey, let's not run here, we need to start crawling first, listen to them. As much as you want to own that home, listen to them, because they are giving you the advice based off of whether or not 5-10 years from now this is still going to be something that's a retirement plan, not an expense against your plan.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, when you think about why people think buying a house, so let's walk through the steps of buying a house, right? So let's say you bought your house for 250 or whatever, right? And then you realize that, okay, in 20-30 years I'm going to retire, but you still don't have a crystal ball as to how much you can sell that house for. My biggest question is, are you going to sell the house? Because
Okay.
most people I deal with have a hard time leaving their house of 30-40 years. In the line of work that I also do, they have a hard time. So what are you going to do when you don't leave the house and now you've relied on this big building as your retirement? You can't, if you're needing to buy groceries, you can't eat your house. I used to say this to people. You can't eat your house. You need physical cash to go buy groceries. So where's that going to come from, right? Unless you have, again, a holistic plan, like you said, where you have a combination of RRSPs, TFSA, you might even have a pension at work. You were lucky to get that. Like, unless you've done all of that research before thinking your house could even be helpful to your retirement plan, think about it that way. For those of you guys who don't own a home yet, or you're thinking a home will be your retirement, think about it that way. You're now 50, 60 years old. You still have a mortgage on your home. You're still working hard. If you haven't saved anything at all, because you thought the house would be your retirement, and you're going to be retiring in 10, 15 years at that point, and you haven't saved anything, now what? You're in a house that you still have a mortgage on, probably. You have no money because all you have is OAS and CPP because your work never had a pension. How are you going to afford your lifestyle on top of still paying off your mortgage? You can't even eat. And so
Yeah.
some people bring this back to, oh, but they have those reverse mortgages. Have you heard of those reverse mortgages, Phil? Like, you've heard of those reverse mortgages where you can refinance your home. So again, borrowing again against the equity you've accumulated in your home. And the whole premise is to use that money, invest it, and draw an income from that. But those kind of reverse mortgages, guys, as I'll say in some instances may make sense, okay? And we could definitely talk about that in a different video. But in most instances, that is not a retirement plan to have to go back and say, I need to remortgage. That is not a retirement plan. That is an afterthought. That is, oh crap, I didn't plan for this. That's what that is, right? So do not even kid yourself that, and again, that's coming down to your debt ability, your debt capability is your retirement plan now. Because now you owe the bank, not just the mortgage you're still paying, but because you refinance, you're going to be owing them again. And that is your retirement plan. And that's simply delusional to think that your retirement plan is borrowing money from the bank.
To really make it simple, if you're talking to a holistic financial planner and they're talking to you about setting up investments where you're going to max out your TFSA, you're going to making sure you have insurance policies in place, making sure that your debt to credit ratio is proper, all of these kind of things. If you're struggling and saying, I can't afford to buy into insurance right now, or I can't afford to max out my TFSA right now, you can't afford to buy a house either.
Mm.
Right? That's just gonna be, if you can't get your base ducks in line, you can't do anything else. It's like those situations, and people, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, right now, you're not gonna be able to flip a house because you're still gonna be living to paycheck when you buy that house, right? And you're gonna be living in that house forever because you're still living paycheck to paycheck. You're not replenishing, right?
Yeah.
And why are you living paycheck to paycheck? Because, well, 9 times out of 10, you haven't sat with a financial advisor, and
Mhm.
or if you did, you didn't listen. Like that's
Yes.
that's just the truth. You didn't follow the plan, and you're gonna say, well,
Yeah.
no, I had a plan and I was following it, but did you actually? I have clients that say, oh yeah, I'm following the plan, but they're not,
Yeah.
right? They're not doing the debt repayment that we structured for them, right?
Right.
They're modifying it to what they think they can afford to do,
Yeah.
right? Even though the budget proved that they can afford to do what the plan said, they don't want to. How come? Well, because I have to buy this, I have to do that, I have to get this, because they're spending their money as quickly as they're paying off their debt. By spending their money, they're maintaining that debt longer, right? And things. So, is that going to change when you buy a house? No. If those habits are there, they're going to stay there when you buy the house. So now what's going to happen? Well, now you've got this mortgage, you've got responsibilities of maintaining the house. Well, you know what? I don't need to fix this right now because, well, I've got this. I want to hold this Christmas party, this really great Christmas party. So I'm going to put this repair off till later. Okay. So just like a debt, that's going to accumulate.
Hmm.
And this is going to accumulate and accumulate. And so, as the more you put off, the longer you're going to have to maintain that debt. So now this property that you invested in is no longer becoming an investment; it's becoming a debt,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And that's why people look at refinancing their homes, reverse mortgages, all of these things. They look into this later because that just like they look into debt consolidation, just like they look into getting another loan to pay off a loan,
Mm.
right? Because of
Yeah.
the fact that they've let this debt build right
Right.
into something that they can no longer manage. So if that's allowed, even when you have a home, again, that doesn't become a retirement asset at that point. That becomes a debt at that point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And let's if you can't pay that debt off, Irene, you worked at the bank. What happens if you can't pay that debt off?
Well, I mean, I can paint a picture for you. And this story is always going to resonate with me. I'll remember this story forever. I had this lady, she was probably in her 70s or 80s, and this is like a long time ago. I was at the bank, and she only had her CPP and OAS, but she had a free and clear home. She had a free and clear home, and she was struggling because she thought, and she also had credit card debt. This was the biggest thing too. She had credit card debt, which I understand why she had it because you can't live like comfortably, but you still have property taxes, guys. Like even though you own your home and have no mortgage, you still have property taxes, you still have maintenance, you have utilities. Okay, you still have to turn the heat on, right? And you still have to eat. And she came to the bank wondering if she can get a consolidation loan because she thought it was her credit cards. That was just an extra debt she put on herself, really. And she thought she can get a loan, and she couldn't because her income did not like it didn't service properly, so she couldn't get a loan just to pay off her credit card debt. But she had this house. How could that be? And back in the day, guys, when you used to go to bank and borrow money, it used to be done on a handshake. Okay, it doesn't exist like that anymore. So her idea of, well, just give it to me because I have a house. So yeah, but we're not talking about the house. We're talking about this credit card debt that you've accumulated. I felt sorry for her because you know what she was doing? She couldn't even afford to eat. The only meal she had every day, 3 times a day, was cereal. That just broke my heart. Like I even remember crying with her. But this is where maybe in my banking career that I feel the most proud of. I had to be honest with her. I said, "Can I tell you the truth? If you were my mom, maybe I should back up. She did not want to even consider selling her house because she wanted to leave it to her kids." Okay. That was her idea. Because, of course, some of you guys are wondering, sell the house, right? I hope some of you guys are saying that. Anyways, sell the house. She did not even want to consider that because she wanted to leave the house to her kids. And I told her flat out, I said, if you were my mom and I knew you were eating cereal forever, like for every meal that you were having, I would say, I don't give a crap about the house, mom. Sell it. That's what I would do if you were my mom. And so, not to mention, like, she still wouldn't sell her house at that point. So, what did we do? What do you think we did? We went into a reverse mortgage because she wouldn't have any payments because reverse mortgages that work that way. And she would have it a little bit of income coming in to pay off this. Well, we used also to pay off her credit card. And she was like in her 80s, or like she was well into her retirement. So think about that story, guys, where she thought her house would be enough to take care of her. And she's going to leave it to her kids because, of course, her kids want her house. And I don't think that's the case anymore.
No, no, you know, a lot of people actually still think that way. You know, that homeowners, they think, oh, yeah, I'm going to leave this is gonna be for my kids. That's great. You know what? Don't leave your kids with the headache.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it's going to be for them. It's going to be a
Yeah.
headache because now
Yeah.
everything that you don't want to do for selling that house yourself, think your kids want to do that? Go through the, you know, by the time you're gone and this house is going to be something that you can give to your kids, they probably have their own home, right? They've probably established themselves, and if they haven't, it's giving them a house is not going to help them establish themselves. Again, if the habits haven't been instilled, they might be able to sell that house, they might get rid of that house, but they're going to be financially in the same situation a year or two down the road because they're going to blow all the money that they've made from that house sale, and they're going to, you know, sit in the lap of luxury for like a year, and then that'll be it, right? And they'll be back to struggling. So if the idea of financial habits are not there, and people, if this is affecting you and you're getting mad at me right now, this is those moments where you look in the mirror, because that means you probably have that issue. We all have been there. Like 90% of us are literally getting mad at me right now. Right? Because it's affecting us, because we are all like that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You know, financial habits is not something that and I'll tell you, it's not our parent, it's not our grandparent, it's none of that. It's our government they want us that way because that's how they're making their money. The banking systems, everything is set up so we are in debt for the rest of our lives. Think about this. Why do you want to buy a house? Well, because now I have an asset. Why do you need an asset? Because I need it for credit. Why do you need credit? Well, because I want to buy this, I want to buy that. If I want to buy this other next big purchase, I can use my house as an asset, or it's building my credibility. Well, so is having a lot of money, right? So is building your wealth. So you actually have the money where you don't ever imagine this, people never needing a credit card. Imagine not owning a credit card. How nice would that, right?
Just living within your means. I mean, that's such a simple concept. Spending less than what you earn, right?
Like,
Versus more than you earn. Like it's almost common sense, but we don't use that. And I mean, why don't we end this off, Phil, with kind of tangible ways, the people who watch your videos, how are ways, because a lot of the people that are watching our videos are our age, they all have homes, you know, they're thinking, how can we help getting them, what next steps are for them to start really considering what to do? And then maybe the generation following us, what could they do? Maybe not following us, but the one after that. What could they do, start doing now so that they don't end up in this problem?
the very first thing you need to know is how much do I have, how much do I actually have to have to retire? What is the number? What is, you know, the approximate number of how much I need to retire? Because without knowing that, moving forward is near impossible, right? That would be the very first thing. Okay, now that we know that number, and people, we figure that out for you. Okay, you don't have to sit down and try and figure it out. You don't have to. No, we can give you that number. Okay, once you've established that number, let's take a look at your debt situation, right? Because why? You'll never attain that number if you're constantly for the rest of your life paying off a debt. It's not, it doesn't work, right? So we want to make sure that we're clearing your debt. Okay, now depending on your debt situation, maybe we're going to clear off your debt first before we do anything else, right? If, to be honest, if it's an extremely large debt, right, then we have to look at building assets while we're depreciating your debt, right? Why do we do that? Why don't we just put all your money in your debt reduction? Well, here's why, people. Because once you clear that debt, then what? You're just going to get yourself back in debt. You haven't built any habits. Right? So
Yes, you're so right.
the reason why financial advisors are sitting there, they're not trying, you know, a good financial advisor is not going to just try to sell you insurance, try to sell you into investments, and try and sell you this, and try and sell you that. No, they're going to put things in place to also help you develop the habits that you need, because once they help you clear your debt, which a lot of advisors don't do, but if you are with a holistic one, they will try to do. Once they've cleared that debt, you now have your ducks in line, because now you're going to have more income because your debt is now cleared. You're going to realize, oh my goodness, this small amount that I've been contributing to has grown this much. I'm going to put more into this, because now once you start putting more into this, now you're actually reaching that independence number, that financial security number, that so you can actually retirement, that retirement number. right? So now that you've got your base foundation in place, you've got your investments, your insurances, all of that in line, right? Your savings, your program, your plan in place, right? At a base level. Now you're just gonna maintain. You've got your debt reduction plan in place. You've got your investment program in place. Now you've got to make sure that the upkeep of whatever you have, whether you're renting, whether you have a home or whatever you're doing, make sure you're managing those ongoing expenses because they're not going away either, right? You
Yeah.
have to maintain that. So part of that maintenance is, okay, well, I'm working, so I'm okay. I can do all this. I'm working. Well, what happens if you get sick? What happens if
Yeah.
you can't? What happens if you can't work? Like, I don't mean a critical illness because we've already put that in place. That's part of our original plan with the investments. We put a critical illness. So if you get seriously sick, we've got that in place already. What happens if you just, I don't know, you just get sick and you can't go to work for 2 weeks, right? You've just lost 2 weeks of pay. Are you going to now be able to get, what happens then? You have to maintain that 2 weeks of cost. So
Yeah.
building your emergency funds and making sure that if there's a situation happening, your car breaks down, right? Oh, now I have a $3,000 bill for my car. Right? That wasn't part of my plan. Well, it should have been.
Hmm.
So having that, the emergency fund, and what advisors often say is have a three to 6 month emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of your income. How many of you out there, hands up, if you actually have 3 to 6 months of income saved up as an emergency fund? If you don't, then your plan is not complete,
Yeah.
right? So all of these things are part of building your retirement plan, right? Oh, I'm married, and all this. What happens if the unfortunate, knock on wood, a situation happens in your relationship,
Yeah.
or what if something happens to your partner, like
Hmm.
tragically, right?
Hmm.
you know there are some crazy things. You have a pet and your pet dies, and now you've got other expenses, like so many things that can
Yeah.
impact your plan that realistically need to be looked at. So that is your retirement planning income, is all of these steps put into an actual plan. I mean, if we're doing that at 30, 40, or 50, is that going to be the same thing at 60, 70, 80? Maybe not. But if you don't have it to start with,
Hmm.
right? Don't expect to start it at 70. We're just
Yeah.
modifying it at 70.
Yeah.
That's all we're doing. We're not
Yeah.
starting it at 70.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And when you think about, and I mean, ending off on the habit part of it, it's like thinking I'm gonna get healthier later when it's more important. Well, if you haven't been eating healthy now, or if you haven't been doing regular exercise now, do you honestly think that your motivation's gonna go up later when you're 7 years old, when you're not as, strong? Your body's already been kind of ruined by your eating habits. It's a habit, guys. And that's so easy to fix if you just recognize that it's just a habit. And sometimes it'll take a financial advisor like Phil and I to even just point it out. And that's really all you need to do is just be aware. Be aware of where you've spent your money up until this point. It's the only way you could recognize that your habits and your routines has not been serving you. It's not to bash how you've been living your life. It's really just to maybe look at the habits that got you to this point. And I mean, I think maybe next time, since we've been talking about, being debt free, because I think that is huge on people's minds, especially in our generation, Phil, just getting debt free, making it the excuse that, well, I'm already in so much debt. You gotta live for today. Like, I hate that. But I'm already in so much debt. I'll just leave it, right? It's just kind of putting your head in the sand. But for those of you guys really serious about, getting your debts paid off because you already had the lifestyle, let's face it, you're paying for the lifestyle you had, years, months ago. That's really only half the plan. That's half the story. And like to Phil's point, sometimes to your point, Phil, like you said, it shouldn't be the only goal. Like building the habit, like you said, to build that wealth besides just depreciating or depleting the debt that you've accumulated. And again, I think this is a good question, Phil. If you sold your home today, I would love to hear some of the things in comments here. What would you actually have left over? Actually calculate that. Let's start there. Start with that habit. What if you sold your home today? What would you actually have left over after paying off the mortgage you probably still have there?
Oh yeah. And what would you do with that income?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you still have to live. You still have to live somewhere, right?
Hmm.
So what are you going to do? Actually, it's interesting because my parents sold their home. You'd think that they would be well off and set up, but they're back to struggling. Why is
Yeah.
that? Why is that? Well, because habits,
Yeah.
motivation. people, motivation goes away. It goes away, right? It's,
Yes.
it's like you put gas in a car, that's motivation to get that car going. But as
Hmm.
you drive it, it goes away and you have to replenish that motivation. You have to replenish
Right.
that gas, right? So the habits, they once you've instilled habits, they don't go away. They're habits
Yeah.
now. They are who you become. Like you have to transition yourself to become that,
Right.
right? And if you're not that, you need to become that, right?
Yes.
In order to actually be able to maintain anything. So again, like, hey, I'm gonna buy a house. I'm motivated. Okay, now you own that home. Now what? Motivation
Yeah.
away, and now you start to slack or whatever, right? So, but if you're the kind of person, I now bought the house and I'm doing this now, and I'm moving forward. I'm moving forward. That's because the habit is instilled in you, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking at a person, you're like, wow, that person has all their ducks in line. That's because their habits are in line, not their motivation.
Right. Yeah.
So keep that in mind, people. Until next time.
Have an awesome day. Thank you for tuning in, and please leave your comments and share this story, share this video.